Hello XK8 enthusiasts, we're going to show you all the parts needed to convert our Jaguar XK8 from automatic to manual. We're going to talk a little bit about the gearbox selection, how you can overcome the CANBUS issue, how we utilise 4.2 litre bits and how that affects the build, and some extras that you'll probably end up doing. Okay, gearbox selection first. So I started off life with this project using this T56 gearbox. But in theory, you can utilise any gearbox as part of this manual swap. But it just depends about how much work you want to do. The S-type gearbox is the most straightforward. Now, if we consider other gearboxes, in this case the T56, you need the standard bell housing bolted to an adapter plate to suit the gearbox you've chosen. So that's one additional thing, and that is completely standard on the S-type gearbox. You'll also need to modify the drive shaft length, customize that, because the gearbox length will be different. Also, the gear shift mechanism, you'll have to custom manufacture that. So in all this, because of all this, the S-type gearbox is the easiest and simplest to do the modification with. Ideally, start with the S-type S653 gearbox. Okay, so that's the gearbox. So I think it's best we start from that point, and I'll show you the clutch components and the components to further down the drive line. So this is the gearbox. Sorry, I've labelled everything up. You can hardly see the gearbox there. So basically the gearbox is the ZF S653 as used on the S-type diesel manual. It's 6-speed and the part number is XR845966. You'll also need the S-type diesel gear shift assembly, because that fits exactly without any modification. Okay, so if we move to the left with the clutch components, you can utilise the existing diesel slave cylinder. The Concentric slave cylinder part number is XR832967, but I would suggest buying a new one. You'll need a pressure plate. In this case, I'm utilising a McLeod 360703 pressure plate, as used on GM Mopar applications. It's 2,400 pound rated. I'm using an organic clutch to suit. Again, a McLeod item 260170. It's a 10.5 inch 26 spline organic clutch. This application is fast road, so I haven't gone over the top on a clutch. You'll also need a custom flywheel. These are supplied by Tom Lenthall for the AJV8 to suit the S-type, again with the GM Mopar outer bolt pattern. You'll also need to adapt the starter drive plate off your car by removing the centre stiffener. Okay, so we'll go back. In order to fit a manual gearbox, you're going to need a clutch pedal. So I've developed our own modified pedal boxes, as you can see here, utilising the existing one, and you can fit any slave cylinder you want on the side here, linking to your new clutch pedal. You can see here, this one is a left-hand drive, which I've developed for the guys over there in the US, and this is a right-hand drive I've been using for bench testing the clutch release. Because the bell housing on the S-type gearbox, the S653, is actually slightly wider than the standard automatic gearboxes use, you're also going to need a pair of new catalytic converters. In this case, Swallow's SR300 cell catalytic converters, and these things are lovely. They're a piece of art. Not cheap, but you get what you pay for. Now these are very slim. They're much slimmer than the existing ones, and these will clear that larger bell housing. So you need a pair of them. We talk about the driveline for a minute. We'll pass the CANBUS issue. I'm also going to need a new Jurid coupling, although this one looks in good condition off the gearbox, the second-hand gearbox I've got. I'm going to need a new Jurid coupling. Looking further down the driveline, obviously the length of the gearbox suits the Propshaft from the 4.2 litre XK8 and XKR. It's the same unit. So if you've got a 4.2 litre car, all these parts on the red blanket here all come with your car as standard, so you don't have to worry about all these. Unfortunately, my car is a 4 litre car, so I've had to buy all these so I can retrofit them onto my car in order to take that gearbox, which is a bit unfortunate, but it's a necessary evil. So let me explain. First of all, the the prop shaft is the correct length, but it isn't on my car. Plus the fact the correct length 4.2 litre prop shafts are two-piece with this bearing in the middle. You can see that there's a support bearing. My car doesn't have that, but the 4 litre XK8s don't have that bearing. So I'm having to buy a bearing mounting plate. The bearing mounts here. So you need an X100 4.2 litre or an XKR. The 4 litre XKR does have a two-piece drive shaft with that bearing in the same place. I also need a different gearbox, rear gearbox mount, part number 3W83 5060 AA, which is this, and I've also bought the isolator, which is XR85 385. Obviously I wanted to get a new one of those because I wanted the gearbox to be stable. But as I say, if you've got a 4.2 litre car, XK8 or XKR, you've already got those, so don't worry. Moving on to the CANBUS issue. Regardless of the gearbox you've chosen, one thing that will be an issue, on removing the automatic transmission, you've also interrupted the transmission control module. So put it into context, in the mid-1990s, car manufacturing was standardizing, particularly for OBDII, the diagnostic system, and the US market was mandatory from 1996. So although Jaguar was already using modules for the ECU and the transmission control, ABS models, etc., often these communicated with earlier serial communication networks rather than high-speed CANBUS. So there is this transition period from 1996 where everybody used true CANBUS, which links multiple nodes via a high-speed pair of wires, CAN high and CAN low, but it didn't come fully prevalent across all Jaguars until the introduction of the X100 and the X308 era in the mid-90s, early 2000s. Unlike other manufacturers, for example BMW, which offer cars and engines in automatic and manual in most of its models, Jaguar never developed a transmission control module for a manual AJV8 car. It decided fairly early on that all its AJV8 cars would be autos. It makes it extremely difficult to reverse engineer and turn an automatic car into manual. But in this case, Jaguar never did it, so it is a big problem in this conversion. So you have two options really. First of all, you can replace the ECU with an aftermarket ECU, There's some guys doing that already. Stephen Dowell from PV Engineering has got a really nice setup, a rolling road setup, and he's into MaxxECU programming, and he has his own race, Jaguar XKR, which he races with the MaxxECU, doing all these things. The other option is an emulator option. And there's a guy in the US, in Texas, called Glenn Nelson, and he's actually developed this unit. It's a CANBUS emulator and a wiring loom. And what this basically does, this actually records all the signals while the car is automatic, and then replays them to the car once you've done the manual swap. And in that way, the car still thinks it's got an automatic gearbox and everything's happy. If you don't do the aftermarket ECU or the emulator, the car system won't be able to see the transmission control module or its signals, and will go into limp mode, and you'll get reduced performance and various issues coming up on the dashboard. The car will be able to drive, albeit slowly, but the main issue, it will fail the MOT test and it won't be road legal from that point. So in this case, we're actually working with Glenn Nelson with his emulator, and we're going to fit that. There is one or two things you need to do that you wouldn't need to do on a ECU swap. That is, we'll take a look at the top of the gearbox and I'll show you those things. So things we need that we don't need within an aftermarket ECU are the clutch pressure sensor in the clutch line that will actually tell the emulator when the clutch is depressed, and also this gear position sensor, which actually is a ZF unit as used on the S653 in discovery applications. But in this case, there's no aperture in the gearbox casing, so we've had to develop this holder for the sensor. There is actually a link here leading to the gear shifter, and as that link moves around, the sensor picks up the gear positions, and then the Glenn's emulator can output the correct signals depending on the gear selected. Okay, when you've done this conversion, there's some other things you need to consider. First of all is the suspension and the braking. In my case, the suspension has all been renewed and the brakes are okay, but I'll probably end up fitting new discs or slightly uprated discs, the larger discs, to improve the braking. But also, what I've noticed, when you remove the exhaust, and I've removed the exhaust many times, you'll end up having to buy new exhaust sections. And here I've got a straight pipe set, which I'm going to fit to make it really loud, just for the hell of it, to start with anyway. I'll probably end up going back to a quiet one. The other thing I've also bought as an extra is a limited slip diff. So I'm not going to show you the limited slip diff, but it is in this box. I haven't actually opened it. Now this is a Quaife limited slip diff that been supplied by Simply Performance. They're the diff experts. Now, it's a bit of a long story. I wasn't going to ideally fit a diff, but I needed a diff for the Tremec gearbox because the gear ratios were different. So that's another reason why the S-type gearbox is the most suitable, because its gear ratios are practically identical to the automatic gearboxes it replaces. So that's another big plus for the S-type gearbox. But anyway, what I did, I traded the diff I had custom made to correct the ratios, and I've bought a standard one off them instead. Okay, there you go. Hope you find that interesting. If you're following our build, we are getting very close to actually fitting it. There are a couple of issues I need to test with Glenn's MCM unit. Once I've done that, we're going to start bolting it all up. If you're interested in the XK8 content, I've got 2 additional channels now, Modurol Shorts, which we're just going to focus on the short videos, short little snippets of information on its own dedicated channel. And we're also going to try Modurol Live, where we're going to have a live video chat once a month, ideally the last Sunday of every month at 8 o'clock. Anyway, if you're interested in that, please take a look at those channels. And if you're interested in Jaguar XK8, please like, comment, share and subscribe for more XK8 videos. Anyway, bye-bye for now.